all online. So I'm going to show you some of the basics of working with Google Colab and doing some of these things. And in the process of doing that, I'm going to make a kind of a fake attempt at solving this problem. So my solution for this problem is terrible. Just warning you, so don't emulate that. This is more about the process instead of the answer itself. To get Google Colab going, normally you'd do this by hand first, write it out on a sheet of paper, and then go to Google Colab. But I'm going to start right out with Google Colab, and I'll talk you through my solution to it. There's a link to it in the assignment itself. It is also just Colab, colab.research.google.com. And so I'm going to go to that site. And when you visit Google Colab for the first time, this dialog pops up with various things. You can go find notebooks that you may have written already. I want to focus on this down in the lower right-hand corner that says New Notebook. And so this will create a blank notebook. And like any other Googly document, you can rename the document by going into the upper left-hand corner and say whatever you want. Burj project is what I'm going to call it. And the end of the file name should be .ipynb. It stands for Interactive Python Notebook. Okay, I've renamed it. Now in Google Colab, like I said, it's sort of like a text editor. There are two different kinds of text that you can put into a Google Colab notebook. There's code, which is Python code for doing calculations, and there's text. And text is for writing things. It's for titles, it's for paragraphs, it's for fancy equations, all typed out. And I'm going to start my Google Colab notebook with a very short introduction. So I need a text cell. And it starts out actually with a code cell. And if I go to the top of the code cell, I have a choice of inserting a new code cell or a new text cell. So I want to insert a new text cell at the very top. And if I double click in that cell, I now have a little text editor. And I can create a heading by pressing the TT, or I can just type a single hashtag key character and a space. And I can give a title for my notebook, which is going to be the Burj. Can you see Iran from the Burj? Okay, and hit enter. And now as I type that, it's very simple plain text on the left, and then on the right I've got a nicely formatted title. And so I'll write a few words. Jeremy Melvin said you can see Iran from the Burj. Is it true? Let's find out. So what you're really doing here is you're restating the problem in your own words, not just copying from our assignment. And you don't want to say something like, my assignment was to, or I was tasked with. No, write it as if somebody was reading this, and this is something you created from scratch. You know, why do you want to know? Well, I'm curious. Is this guy crazy? Is it really possible to see Iran? I don't know. The second thing I want to do is make a statement about, so this is a question I want to answer, but I want to make a statement about, I don't know the answer to this right off the bat. You weren't born knowing how far Iran is from the Burj. You have to do a little research. And what kinds of things might you want to know in this situation that you weren't born knowing that would help you answer the question? So I want to list some facts and their sources. You'll notice I typed another line here, and I began the line with 2 hashtags and then a title. And what that does on the right-hand side is creates a little subheading called Facts and Sources. And I'm going to make a bulleted list. So a bulleted list you can start by typing an asterisk and then a space. Height of the Burj is, let's see, 830 meters. And my source for that was skyscrapercenter.com. There's lots of sources for that. What's another thing I need to know? Oh, distance on a map from the Burj to Iran is 160 kilometers. And I just quickly glanced at earth.google.com, so Google Earth, to get that. There's probably some better ways to do that. So those are some facts. You may come up with better facts, more interesting facts, more relevant facts. There may be some other things to think about. Now, when Jeremy Melvin said that you could see Iran from the Burj Khalifa, what did he mean? That you're like from where on the Burj? Did he mean standing in the parking lot of the Burj Khalifa, or did he mean standing from the observation deck? Did he mean standing from the lobby? Did he mean like hanging off the top spire of the Burj Khalifa? We don't actually know. So I think that question is relevant. So figuring out in my math where you are on the Burj when making the statement is really an assumption that I have to make. And I really need to state up front what that assumption is. So I'm going to make another little subheading called assumptions. I am assuming that Jeremy Melvin was lazy and afraid of heights. And never went above 20 meters above ground. Above ground. Okay. Okay. So, next thing I want to do is talk about how I'm going to solve the problem. So, another subheading, I'm going to call it Method for Answering the Question. You could use something else, it doesn't really matter. But so what I'm doing is I'm giving the facts that I need to solve the problem. I'm making and stating the assumptions that I need to solve the problem. And I'm going to say a little bit about how I'm going to solve the problem. And if I've done this already by hand on a sheet of paper, I kind of know what I'm going to do, but I need to write about it here. So I'm thinking like the Burj Khalifa is this tall building straight up out of the ground. It's probably perpendicular to the surface of the ground. So when something's perpendicular like that, I usually think in terms of, maybe there's a right triangle I can work with here. Okay. I am going to model the Burj and distance to Iran as two legs of a right triangle. I will find the hypotenuse length and decide if it is possible to see that far. And on the right hand side of my screen, I've got this very nice looking little document.